In between the Elite and Final Four, I actually had a couple days, but of course I waited a couple days, and now I don't have a couple days. So, maybe I need these kinds of limitations. Maybe I knew that. That's why I waited. Sure. Anyway, let's get right to it. On the women's side, we've seen this before, except last time UConn had a different number in front of it, and we get all 4 ones, just like we did in the men's tournament last year, but unlike then, this wasn't really a surprise. If I look at most people in our bracket, and if you look at just numbers across the world, the 1-1-1-1 was by far the most popular combination, and that's not always the case. This year in particular, though, even the 2 seeds, there was a few arguments and some 3s, but realistically, there has been 4 more dominant teams for the majority of the season, so this isn't really a surprise now, nor would it have been a surprise if we really knew about this months ago. Now, I think if you break it down team by team, and you'll notice I haven't really been talking a lot about the ones, because I kind of saw this one coming. There wasn't really a close call that, some teams in the third quarter, there was something, but by the time it got to the fourth, all of the 1 seeds that I can remember, unless I'm really missing something, in which case, let me know. They were pretty much academic, and they weren't our best games. In a lot of cases, there were 20 plus, 30 plus kind of blowouts. For each team, though, now they have to actually play a team that has that kind of pedigree. In South Carolina, it's funny. Normally, we're talking about them as the favorites when you think about Dawn Staley and the program. Unfortunately, they've lost so many to the W that they really do need that kind of senior-heavy team. So the infrastructure's there. It's just most people doubt them. And I think, honestly, if they were against Texas and potentially UCLA, I think more people would be giving them a run. But because they're up against UConn, I'd say they're the least likely to come out of this. The other matchup, however, could be a little more squirrely. Now, you got Texas, who most people discounted, and I'm saying most people as in our pool. UCLA was the more common team coming from this side. But a few do have Texas, and actually a few have them going even further. We'll talk about that when we get to the pool. But they are high tempo, they are high energy, their defense is solid, and they do have a little more depth than you'd think. We'll just see if that kind of depth hasn't always had to play other deep teams. So that's going to be where they're at. I think the one thing they have going for them, though, is that chip on the shoulder, because of the programs, they're probably the least storied, and they're still trying to make a name for themselves in that regard. Although, considering how far they've been in the last 5 years, you can make the argument that they're ready to break through. On the other end, and the reason why I say they have to be a little squirrelier, UCLA has been talking about this game since last year. They made it to the Final Four, got knocked out by the champs, and since then, it's been UConn or bust. They keep talking about the matchup they want. They wanted to get to the finals. They figured to be against UConn, or they were hoping that'd be the case. They were kind of the unanimous number 2, I think, coming out. And now they have to step up. And the reason why I say this one can get squirrely is once you start getting on that Final Four floor, I said that slowly on purpose, sometimes the nerves add up and the expected team, that pressure hits. I do think UCLA comes out on top, and I think they lead for the majority of the game. But if Texas can make a run, especially second quarter and beyond, they can get UCLA in a little bit of foul trouble, which has only happened a couple times this year, but it's possible. And that's what I think their key for success is. That, and obviously, they're going to have to play that kind of athletic D that they're known for. Obviously, we got a number 1 when they're undefeated. They're defending champions. But not only that, if you're paying attention a lot to women's basketball, they're actually getting compared to all-time great teams of UConn, which essentially is just all-time great teams. If you're looking at anything in the past 30 years, they have to come up. And the crazy part is their players, FUD and Spain, are getting mentioned, especially Spain, on the conversation isn't, are they one of the greatest? It's literally, are they on the Mount Rushmore? Are we talking top 4? FUD doesn't tend to get there, but some people already have Spain going, and that's going to be an interesting one to see. They're already penciling her on future All-USA teams. There's actual talk, and if you don't follow the WNBA, there's a couple expansion teams popping out, one in Toronto, and not surprisingly, I follow a podcaster who talks about it. There's actually a push to see should Toronto in the expansion draft for the Toronto Tempo already start tanking so that maybe they can get her in the future. That's pretty ridiculous for a franchise that technically doesn't exist yet, but that's the kind of level of talent people are talking about when they talk UConn. I think if UCLA went down, it would be a shock. I think if UConn went down in the Final Four game, it would be like a tidal wave hit the bracket. But let's see. Dawn Staley's done it before. On the guys' sides, there was decent games, but I don't know if you were watching a lot of them. There were some second halves that were closer than others, but realistically, I was never really sweating, especially Arizona and Michigan. That kind of seemed like it was just going to happen. Now, granted, you can call me out because there's a couple runs that were certainly making that more interesting. But right now, we're in a pretty big season when it comes to sports. The NBA should be, but no one cares. The players don't care about the NBA. Everyone cares about the NBA playoffs. But if the players don't even care about the regular season and it's already a foregone conclusion, that one's not creating the tempo. Hockey, though, for those who follow, is getting pretty intense. Baseball just got started. There's about to be a golf tournament, I think, in Augusta, people keep talking about. So to make the news cycle, you got to be a little bit more. And even Illinois kind of cracked it to an extent. I think had that been a tighter game, had that been maybe against Florida, perhaps that would have. But let's be honest, the only story, and there was 2 stories attached to it, so maybe the only game, was Duke and UConn, and that's for probably a reason. I said in the write-up and talking to people here, I was up early to watch, but I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't see it really going down that way. When it was 15 plus in that 15 to 20 zone, I was putting around getting ready for work. So when it happened fast, and suddenly the old staples happen. Shots start going down from one side, a few turnovers, or just bad decisions. Although you got to say, Duke didn't really choke the whole time. They did run some longer offensive sets. They did get some buckets out of it. It wasn't a complete implosion. Although there were, whenever you start the stall, you're just going to have some turnovers. I think you just got to know that. That's why some teams really try not to do it that much. Long story short, we get down to the last 2 plays or the last couple minutes, which I'm sure if you even missed the game, you watched that. And it really came down to 2 big stories that people talked about. Number 1, poor Boozer. Not that Boozer, the other Boozer. That's the one. Gets the ball in the middle. They're breaking the press. 2 wide open guys. And if you were watching, that was almost like a unison volleyball block that you can kind of think they probably timed in practice. Both guys going up at the exact same time. Perfect timing, tipping the pass. Now, if he holds it, he couldn't have held it for too long, but the odds are maybe he does get fouled. But then I'd be willing to bet out there, especially if the free throws don't go his way, that there's someone trying to make a point about selfish basketball because he had 2 wide open guys. Because there were 2 wide open guys. He probably could make that pass 3 or 4 more times. And every single time it goes through, I don't know why I chose 3 or 4. I could have chose a bigger number, but you get what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, everyone that's sitting at home saying that they could have made that pass didn't have to make it, with 2 athletic guys getting their hands in the passing lane, playing super aggressive with their backs against the wall with everybody watching. Unfortunately, it just went down that way, and that's going to be the legacy. Realistically, for someone like me, I'm probably going to see that replay 40 to 50 more times in my lifetime, followed by the shot that hit. What I'm not going to see is, I think, the number 1 story that people were talking about, just how insane Dan Hurley is. If you didn't see the weird headbutt and stare down, it's actually weirder the more you watch it, because it almost looks like he thinks he's being funny or an inside joke, but it's been talked about to death. Yes, it probably could be a technical if it wasn't an Elite 8 game to get in the Final Four, and technically it is a technical, but they're never going to call that at that particular moment. I think if they did, there'd actually be more of a reaction. I wouldn't mind it, just as that sense of, as someone watching, I want there to be, consequences for just being stupid. But it's Dan Hurley, and he has a history of it, right? While he also has some great calls and some phenomenal plays, if you're looking to scrape, he's made some very impassioned speeches and probably done a lot of things inappropriate too. We know this about him. When he loses, he acts like a 5-year-old. And when he wins, he acts like a 4.5-year-old. That's just kind of his maturity level. But as Rich Eisen said when they were covering this, he cuts down nets. Google it. I did think of the Crash Davis quote, though, more when he's talking about having fungus on your shower shoes and saying when you win 20 games in the show, then you can grow fungus back on your shoes. Because till then, the whole classy speech, you know what I'm talking about. They'll think you're being colorful if you're there. And I guess that's him. You benefit if you win, and there's not much you can say about it except for the fact that, why? And really, it's not really my thesis, but more my conclusion. The reason I'm really upset is, number 1, it comes down to, do you like Dan Hurley or not? And I don't really. If you did, you're probably like, that's good old Dan. But why do I really now not like Dan Hurley? It has less to do with UConn. He's making me feel sorry for Duke. Ugh. Women's side, the generator didn't just pop up, so I'm pretty sure, I mean, most people kind of had UConn and UCLA in the finals, so it makes it pretty easy. If UConn wins, I think it's Maudie. Remember, it's top 3, so I think if we jump down, it would be Ben and probably David as our top 3, unless I'm doing some math wrong, with Raph just being the first one left out. If it's UCLA, we got Mark, we got Lindsay, and then we got to scroll down and try and figure out, did my dogs have enough in the middle to actually place so I can brag about my dogs getting on the podium? I think that's pretty funny. If we do not have one of those two, now there's not too many left, but if I keep scrolling down, I believe, unless I'm wrong, we got Emma, that if Texas wins, I believe she takes it. Just don't get, let's wait till the final to see, but I'm pretty sure that would happen. And if we keep going down, I'm also pretty sure if South Carolina busts through, then we got a repeat champion in Kelly. So the women's bracket really does come down to only a handful of people left, and it really will come down to the winners, as it should. On the men's side, you can play around with this scenario piece, and obviously if you're doing different things, you can see how everyone jumps around, and you got, remember, for the men, it's top 7 that kind of goes through here. What I did in terms of the writing was just to let people know, so essentially if UConn wins, it looks like we have the youngest champion of all time. I didn't put the top 7, but do remember, it's not just the top 7 that gets paid out. You also get a bump for being the top in your region. Now, usually you're also in the top 7, but just in case you aren't, you get a little bit extra. If Illinois wins, it looks like it's Kent with some varying levels of people here. Now, there is some scenarios where Kent gets first and second. We did once have a first and third with Brendan Schussler, so that would be a first ever if Rushy can pull that one off. Arizona, we could have different ones depending who's there. It's either Taylor if it's UConn and Branch if it's Illinois. And then back to Kent, so he has a 50% chance here with Michigan and Illinois as people that would push him over the top. Go and check it out. The scenario generator is worth your time just to see if you crack the top 7. But when we get into the finals, I will be a little bit clearer about the 7 and all that stuff, so it's down in writing. Hope that helps. Well, I've made a bunch of videos and I avoid the extreme ramble until today. That was a bit longer than expected, but it is what it is. Anywho, 6 games left over the next 4 days in the 2 tournaments remaining. If you still have a chance at money, congratulations. If you're just trying to watch good basketball, congratulations too. Either way, best of luck, everybody.